Don's Wife, Chapter 5, Part 2. The chance for the chance encounter was not afar. That day, R.D. had dropped in at one of his prime business enterprises, the Champa Plaza, for just a dekho. There was almost a high alert in the store, as everybody pretty well knew what a dropping in and a dekho or look in meant. It was an euphemism for a surprise check by the big boss, whose sheer existence was otherwise considered a mystery, as he appeared in public extremely rarely, if at all. In fact, except the very senior managerial staff, none of the other employees had ever seen him in person. But all of them knew that he could look closely at any of them at will, thanks to the many closed-circuit cameras covering every corner, every section, and every floor of the department store. Thus, all of them were always at their very best in their interactions with their customers as well as among themselves. Seated in the CEO's large chamber-cum-watchtower at the top floor, as R.D. cursorily glanced across the rows of monitors, his eye caught something interesting and he moved close to one particular screen. Blood froze in everybody's veins as he instructed the attendant to zoom in on that camera. Bhau, who was accompanying him, closed in behind him, intrigued by his action. The camera zoomed in and a smile appeared on Bhau's face. He turned his face to look at R.D. and found him gawking at the picture in the monitor with his mouth open. Without a word, R.D. slowly turned his face to perhaps look for Bhau, but was startled to find him already staring at him from very close quarters. Not a word was spoken, but a lot of sentences were exchanged between their eyes before a tiny but mischievous smirk appeared on their faces as they turned ever so slowly to look at the monitor again. Kamini and some other girl were talking animatedly to a counter girl. Their eyes shone as they exchanged another mysterious look between themselves, and then slowly Bhau moved out to fix things. Silently and surreptitiously, yet speedily, things were rearranged. Soon, the number of shoppers began to thin out. Seemingly, they were fed some security story, as was the case with the new ones wanting to stream in at the entrances. Obviously, this solicitation was done selectively and almost in whispers, so that a few who were to remain in for the atmosphere were not alarmed. The general staff, especially the sales personnel, were taken into confidence and advised to behave normally, which was a trying prospect for most of them, as they had heard all kinds of fearsome stories about the legendary Big Boss. Kamini remained unaware of this covert little operation, but her friend soon sensed that the store was looking quite empty all of a sudden. She mentioned this to Kamini, and the latter too acknowledged it. Just as she was contemplating asking a salesperson if it was closing time for some reason, she noticed R.D. and Bhau in the food section, seemingly involved in a mild argument over something. Intrigued, she walked up to them, followed by her friend, just as they were nearing a resolution. You are impossible, Bhav. Okay, we'll ask the sales girl, Hardy said challengingly. All right, Bhav responded defiantly, and both of them turned and even took half steps in the direction from which Kamini was approaching them. Behaving normally, Hardy even shot his query at her as he moved. Madam, could you please tell us? And then he came to an abrupt halt, and like an expert actor, feigned perfect surprise. He gawked at her and uttered, Tum? Hi, sir. How are you, sir? Asked Kamini enthusiastically. Arre, Kamini, so nice to see you. Are you with the... No, she cut him. We were just looking around. Noticed you, so came along. Some problem? No problem as such. We are just having a little argument between us. Bhau says that the pasta here, pointing at the packet of pasta shoots in his hand, is first boiled in water, and I say that you cook it in olive oil and then do whatever you do. He says that you don't use oil at all. Now you tell me, beta, Ardi said in a tone of scoring over Bhau. Kamini looked at both of them bemusedly before saying slightly patronizingly, To be honest, uncle, you use both if you want to make good pasta. Many people don't use oil at all. They just boil it in water. True. She began explaining, looking at Bhau in particular, who looked at Hardy smugly. But it then sticks and becomes fudgy. So it's best to put a few drops of oil as well, as you boil it in water. Both Hardy and Bhau felt a bit defeated and lost for words, and just gawked at each other, and then at her. She teased them. You two are going to cook some fancy Italian dish, are you? No, not quite. We were just going to give it a try, said Bhau shyly. Have you cooked Italian before? She asked suspiciously. Frankly, we don't know cooking at all. We were just going to be adventurers, said Hardy, like a little boy who had been caught doing some mischief. Kamini gaped in disbelief before she said accusingly, Oh, uncle, how could you? Cooking is not an easy thing. And Italian cooking is an art. Literally an art. You know Italian cooking? Asked Hardy lightly. Of course I do. I'm very good at it, said Kamini slightly pompously. You'll cook it for us? He asked disarmingly. Of course I'll cook, she said forthrightly. When? Well, she suddenly realized what she had got into and tried to be evasive. Someday. Why not today? Said Bhau promptly. Today? I don't know. She seemed uncertain. Where today? At my house. It's not far from here. Now? For a moment, she was even more unsure. Yes, why not now? Unless you have something planned out. Well, it's not that. It's just that she seemed to ponder. Then she turned to her friend. Shall we, Rajni? Okay, said Rajni shyly. Uncle, this is my friend Rajni. She offered introductions. Hardy said, Bhau. They all greeted each other. Hardy beckoned enthusiastically. Let's go. After a couple of hours, when Harsh entered the house, he found the domestics beaming more than usual. Preoccupied by his own thoughts, he ignored it and headed straight for his bedroom upstairs. But midway on the staircase, his eyes darted in the direction of the kitchen at the far back of the huge sitting room. He noticed some unusual activity there, with a domestic help or two zipping in and zipping out of the room. Intrigued, he turned back and headed for the kitchen himself. He was shocked as well as amused by what he saw. There was excitement and a flurry of activity around the cooking platform, which was presided over by Kamini with his father and Bhau assisting her genially and enthusiastically. Both of them were acting like two young schoolboys on a picnic outing, keen to show off their creative skills to their seniors and pals. The family cook and his assistant also hung around as eager side helps, attending to subsidiary activities like chopping and mincing. Such was the bonhomie between them that none of them even bothered to take much notice of him, much less explain as to how the whole enterprise had come about. A mere "Hi" or "the food would be ready soon" was all he got by way of a greeting from them. Nobody even introduced him to Rajni, whom he had never met before, and who was concentrating on designing the salad, or even to explain to him as to how the two women had cropped up in the house. Apparently, what was thought out as a spur of the moment adventure of only a few minutes had evolved into an elaborate layout for luncheon, on Kamini and Rajni giving in to the pugnacious persuasion of the two old men on discovering that 3 of their afternoon lectures were cancelled. Harsh was finally told the whole story only on the lunch table laden with a sumptuous spread. He immediately understood the craftiness of the two old men, but chose not to speak and retained his reticent self during the lunch, rather than be part of the effervescent atmosphere. His discomfiture did not go unnoticed by Kamini, but she also chose to not indulge him till he was ready to unburden himself. After the meal, R.D. gave her a guided tour of the large house. He seemed a different person when he led her into the temple room. This was the most valued room of the house for him, as apparently it was entirely designed and decorated by himself in homage to his beloved wife, Harsh's mother. A large oil painting of a youthful champa adorned the main wall, underneath which, on a narrow carved platform, was placed the puja paraphernalia. The atmosphere in this room was markedly different from that obtaining in the other spaces of the house. Strains of soft Indian instrumental music wafted across sparingly, together with the enticing sounds of birds cooing and brooks flowing on some kind of hauntingly melodious notations. A feeling of tranquility enwrapped Kamini, and she felt relaxed and happy. R.D.'s love and devotion for his departed wife was evident when he talked about her. This room was his refuge, where he spent at least some time of the day, every day, to feel one with his wife. The atmosphere again changed to camaraderie and joviality while Kamini was leaving, but she proved to be cleverer by half for R.D. as she teased him at the door. "Uncle, next time if you feel like meeting me or want me to cook for you, just ask me straight. You don't have to work out some kind of a game again." "What do you mean, beta?" R.D. was intrigued. "Come on, uncle. You are not all that great an actor either, that one can't catch you. I had seen through the act of you two at the store itself." She gave a piercing but playful look at both R.D. and Bhau before addressing R.D. again. "And it wasn't too difficult to guess that Champa Plaza was also owned by you." "Oh my God! You don't work with some intelligence agency, do you?" R.D. exclaimed and then asked, almost in alarm, "What more do you know about me?" "At the moment, only this much. I'm not nosy, you see." She pulled his leg. All of them burst into laughter, including a generally taciturn Harsh. And sure enough, an otherwise smart and perceptive Kamini remained unaware of R.D.'s real identity despite meeting him several times and going steady with Harsh. Besides, there was no real reason not to trust the obvious, which was that R.D. was a business magnate who had risen from the lowest layers of economic deprivation to become a tycoon through sheer grit, exceptional business acumen, and nose for opportunity. She enjoyed a comfortable familiarity with both the father and the son individually, but was not able to bridge the undefined chasm between the two. She intuitively knew that if she actively pursued the matter with Harsh, it could be counterproductive for their beautiful relationship. She resolved that prudence was a better form of virtue and decided to leave things to destiny, which she was confident would work to her advantage. On the other hand, Harsh was clear in his mind that as soon as he finished college in Mumbai, he would secure admission in a reputed institute abroad and would then propose to Kamini. But R.D. truly dreamt of Harsh and Kamini as husband and wife and was increasingly impatient to see them safely wedded. However, knowing that even the slightest prodding from his side could spoil things completely, he forced himself not to act on an impulse and to keep his emotions on leash. The matter got a push at the behest of Professor Sathe and his wife Sudha, who had really begun to look forward to Harsh's visits. They had sketchy knowledge that his father was a man of means and had huge assets and highly successful business enterprises in many cities in India. Hence, they could not be faulted if they had begun to aspire for a matrimonial bond between their daughter and Harsh. But like R.D., Professor Sathe also knew that premature initiative from his end could have an undesirable effect, and so was choosing to act with circumspection. The opportunity came accidentally. One winter morning, in the terrace outside their room, as she was sharing tea with her parents, bent over the newspapers, she noticed a large advertisement of Champa Plaza on the front pages of the papers, regarding some kind of sale which was going on in some of these stores. The advertisement triggered her memory of the second encounter she had with R.D., and she burst into a small peals of laughter, which attracted her parents' curiosity. They had a hearty. It was then that Professor Sathe casually asked her to invite R.D. over some day, as he seemed to be an interesting person. Kamini agreed to do so. She was able to smell what was brewing in the hearts and minds of both the old men and was prepared to go along, since her heartstrings were playing no different tune either. As she had guessed, R.D. was immediately enthusiastic about the idea. Harsh was not unresponsive either. He too knew one thing for sure, that if he ever was going to come to the stage of asking for her hand, this step, the meeting of their respective parents, would inevitably have to be taken. Perhaps everybody instinctively felt that initially only an informal meeting was better to test the voters. Hence, Kamini took it in her stride when Harsh declined to join in. The meeting went off wonderfully well. Kamini's parents were hugely taken in by R.D.'s earthen charm and native intelligence. So was he, with their simplicity, devoid of any intellectual pomposity, so evident in highly educated types, which he experienced every now and then among some of his freshly recruited senior employees. They gelled like a house on fire, and many more visits followed from both sides. Strange is the phenomenon of human optimism. At most times, the facades of day-to-day living can have a highly overbearing effect on one's normal intelligence, resulting in an effortless suspension of disbelief. It was natural, therefore, that one evening, when R.D. tentatively mentioned as to what a beautiful pair Harsh and Kamini made, the line was immediately picked up by both Professor Sathe and Sudha. Harsh had already appeared for his finals and was quite confident about his results, after which he was sure to get out of his father's world. Hence, there was no reservation from his side either. One early morning, Professor Sathe drove to R.D.'s place with two freshly made pans and put one in his mouth, and R.D. responded by doing likewise. Then and there, the Pandits were contacted and instructed to finalize an auspicious date for formal engagement ceremony. Harsh and Kamini's marriage was going to be solemnized in a traditional way in every respect. End of Part 2, Chapter 5.